welcome to the next episode of TAtech Live. This is a webcast series where we talk to some of the most fascinating people in the talent acquisition and talent technology space. My name is Peter Weddle, and I'm the host for the show. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk with somebody who probably needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him a short one here in just a second. What we want to do is provide a preview of some of what's going to happen at TAtech Europe, our conference that's coming up in London on November 11-12. So for those of you in the talent technology space, we hope that you'll join us there at that event. So for today's session, we're going to talk about the state of the talent technology industry and marketplace. And there's certainly no better person to do that than Hung Lee. He's internationally known expert in talent acquisition and talent technology and the curator of Recruiting Brainfood. Hung, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Peter. How are you doing? Hello, everyone. Wonderful to have this time to have a chat with everybody here.
It's great to have you. Hung is doing the opening keynote and will be our master of ceremonies. So let's dive right in, Hung, and let's talk about some of the big topics that you see in this space. Certainly one, I guess, would be the consolidation going on among some of the key players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been waiting for a few big sort of purchases, haven't we? It seems that it's been a little while since we had some of these bigger players acquired. So yeah, wonderful to see that movement. And congratulations, of course, to all of those folks that succeeded. So yeah, we're talking here specifically of the acquisition of Smart Recruiters by SAP and subsequently Workday buying Paradox. I guess they're the big two. There's a few. I think there's one more that's occurred, hasn't there, in that time frame. So yeah. Great to see, and what can we say? It's been, I think good purchases all around, good exits for the innovative companies that have been acquired.
So, but do you think that it signals a change in the way employers are looking for talent technology? For years we've believed that there was always space for best of breed companies, typically smaller, more specific functionality. SAP and Workday, these are big end-to-end platforms. Does these two acquisitions and the others that you mentioned, do they signal a change in preference among employers in your view?
I think they don't signal a change per se, because I think these acquisitions would have made sense in any context. But it does correlate with the general trend of consolidation. So let me explain a little bit what I mean by this. And by the way, I have no relationship on the strategy with any of the companies involved here, so I'm speculating from the outside. But let's go ahead and do that. I think firstly, Smart Recruiters joining SAP made perfect sense in any context, simply because SAP. Have I frozen there? Yeah. Sorry about the little bit there. SAP generally didn't have a successful talent acquisition sort of module, and we've latterly seen sort of recruiters come in, and it looks like it's going to essentially knock out SuccessFactors. It looks like so that I think was simply plugging a hole for SAP. That made perfect sense. Also gives them kind of the AI narrative that also Smart Recruiter is very smart in positioning sort of as an AI first, AI native ATS platform. So yeah, I think that could be described very much as plugging a hole. And the same could be said for Workday's acquisition of Paradox. Workday have been buying companies. They're not ashamed to do this, and I think they've been smart to acquire the talent and the technology with that purchase. Long time coming. I think people in the know have kind of been looking at that one just waiting for it to come in. So you can look at those two deals, I think, very separately from wider trends and say that made sense in any marketplace. Having said that, we can also say that there's been a huge amount of pressure on the buying community to consolidate the technologies that they're using. So to answer your question as to say, is there a scenario where point solutions are starting to disappear and now we're getting into the all-encompassing one-stop shop? I think that argument can be made because the pressure for internal recruitment teams to reduce the amounts of tools that they use is very clear. This is the do more with less mantra that we've been hearing for the last 3 years or more, and that ultimately means getting more fully featured systems with a single subscription. The further kind of driver to it is kind of the data advantage you get from having an integrated all-in-one system. I think one thing is clear with artificial intelligence is that it's usually a data problem that prevents it from being effective. If you have a problem with the source data, it's not consolidated, it needs to be transformed, it's not structured in the right way, it doesn't communicate with each other, you're not using the same language, suddenly AI doesn't seem to be able to do too much. So I think companies that are looking, organizations that are looking for the optimal AI solution, increasingly are going to look at a more end-to-end talent suite rather than a large suite of point solutions where you're hoping for interoperability and you're hoping for some sort of AI to be able to work across that piece. I think it's increasingly obvious that if you want the benefit, the data advantage from AI, you're kind of going to go to the end to end. So yeah, I think the answer to your question, Peter, and this is a super long answer, is yes, these two things are symbolic of consolidation, but I think they made sense in any circumstance. But underneath all of that, I think we are heading towards a world where basically we're going to have less interfaces, less tools, more fully featured experiences within the same brand.
I think, excuse me, on a more strategic level, it might also mean something else. I mean, I agree with everything you've said, but I think we're going to see a move by the big HR tech vendors to shore up their capabilities in talent acquisition. Because at the board level, and certainly in the C-suite, there's a recognition that you can't manage the resources that you don't have. So talent technology is sort of the gatekeeper to successful human resource management. And if your functionality is less than optimal, then you're at a competitive disadvantage. So for the HR tech vendors, this is a way of protecting their place, maybe even gaining advantage in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right as well. I mean, the concept of having kind of I guess one analogy that we could try and think about is that we've kind of moved people into different buckets as they move through the employee life cycle. Outside of the system, they were like just prospects, and maybe we had a CRM or a sales tool or something like that to handle those folks. Once we're recruiting them, then we had the ATS, and they had this a processing period where they had indeterminate status, like were they outside of the company, inside of the company. We're kind of figuring it out. Okay, ADS is the solution, and then when they're in the system, okay, that's when we have a HRIS or something like that to deal with it. But of course, we want a connected system. We want to understand how that person goes through the entire life cycle and actually even loops back in. The concept of having a kind of a lifetime relationship with with these people cannot be easily achieved when you have disparate technology stacks and disparate sort of organizational functions, to be honest. So we're seeing a consolidation of the technology, but also I think a consolidation of the people operations as well. Where TA having spent last 20 years trying to roll away from HR probably needs to backpedal somewhat and roll back into it, because I think that is the what seems to be the future for what that function will be, kind of what it was in the past.
Rolling HR into TA, but that's another topic. So let's talk about buying habits among, or staffing practices, I should say, among employers. Obviously, you can't spend a day on LinkedIn and not see a couple of posts about companies laying off people, replacing them with technology, specifically artificial intelligence based products of one kind or another. Automation has been around for a while, but it's growing in its acceptance. And then you have employers also leaning into fractional employees, and gig workers have been around for a while. So, are these staffing practices likely to have an impact on a segment of the economy that's built around filling full-time positions? Talent job boards in particular, but also the whole range of talent technology is all about helping employers fill full-time positions. So, do these changes, granted they're not universal by a long shot, but they are moving in that direction, do they likely say anything about prospects for the future for the online recruiting industry per se?
Yeah, really interesting. And some of these comments may be kind of difficult to say and difficult to listen to. But I think we owe it to ourselves and to everyone else to be as honest as we can. I think the reality of it is that companies are beginning to question whether the achievement of their business objectives is best achieved by hiring human resources into it. A couple of reasons why this is. I mean, firstly, we've kind of had so the external macro is extremely chaotic. If you look at the global economy, obviously we're subject to all kinds of turbulences that we probably haven't ever witnessed before. We're in a situation where it's very difficult to understand what your cost of business is, particularly if you're in kind of physical import export. Very difficult to know what the right size of your organization is. No one knows how to right size your team anymore. Given the economic circumstances going around, we're basically like one rage tweet away from another economic crisis, which suddenly raises your cost of doing business. So in that circumstance, as an employer, what you're going to do is basically try and reduce your risk. And reducing risk ultimately means reducing payroll. Now, there's two ways in which that manifests. Either you reduce the direct payroll you have now, or you suppress the growth of that payroll going forward. And you say, you know what, we're going to be defensive in terms of hiring because we have no clue what the market is going to look like. It's best that we don't go out and stick another 20 heads on our headcount without sort of knowing what that world looks like. We're going to be super defensive and increase kind of the reserves that we have in order to get through the tough times. So in that circumstance, I mean, I'm going to blame Trump directly here, Peter. I hope people are not going to be too upset by this. But Donald Trump basically has shaved off about 1% of global GDP with his Liberation Day tariff war. That's not just direct sort of cost to importers and exporters worldwide. It's just caused every employer to be terrified as to whether it's to commit to headcount. It's been a massive suppressant effect to it. 1% of global GDP is tens of millions of jobs, that were not created, that should have been created, and they should have been posted onto job boards and so on. So that's a huge hammering a blow to the entire recruitment industry. Sort of corollary to that, sort of alongside this, in parallel to this chaos, we also have artificial intelligence, which I know that sort of we can talk about AI being, what there's arguments as to whether AI has had an effect on reducing employment. People are saying, hey, listen, no, actually the increase of interest rates has been a bigger reason why, companies are not investing. I think all of those are valid. It's very difficult to attribute. But I think it is also pretty much clear that the pace of innovation with artificial intelligence is causing companies to hesitate, because companies are starting to think, hang on, what if AI could do this? If not today, maybe in 3 months. If not in 3 months, maybe 6 months. Even that thought in people's minds is causing sort of a suppression of headcount. So all of these two big factors, essentially Trump-driven chaos economically, which is causing investment risk, and then AI sort of innovation rate going so fast, basically is causing sort of everyone to think, hang on, do I wait another 3 months to figure out whether AI can do this, is causing sort of slow growth of job numbers. So yes, this basically is likely to be persistent. If you look at those two trends, they're not going to go away. They're going to continue. So the chances are, where we're at now is going to be, it's going to be the same sort of path for the next several years. So we've got to be smart about what that means and what that looks like. That doesn't mean you can't sort of do well in business in this marketplace, because where there is a problem, there is going to be a solution. Where there's a sort of and there's an opportunity there for entrepreneurs to take advantage of it. You look at a company like Mercor, classic example. Today, didn't they raise something like 300 billion, whatever ridiculous number? And they started off, as far as I know it, they started off as some sort of upscaled Upwork, fairly basic type of service. They pivoted to saying, okay, we now want to train LLMs with expert knowledge workers. But they started off pretty much like a recruitment service. So it's perfectly possible to make money out of these circumstances, but it probably won't be the same way we made money 5-6 years or so ago, where we were kind of very comfortable in an economy that we knew was growing and a kind of job growth that we knew was also growing. So yeah, I know I'm chopping in and out with the internet as well, Peter. So hopefully I managed to get some of that across.
Yeah, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. So another potential disruptive force in all of this, of course, is the 800-pound gorillas playing in the marketplace. First you had Facebook, then you had Google, now you have OpenAI. Any thoughts on what that means for job boards, for aggregators, for programmatic platforms?
Yeah, I'm just going to come out hard and fast with some comments on this, okay? Again, I think OpenAI's job board is probably a damn squib. I kind of put a vote on the community on that. 60% said damn squib. I'm going to agree with that. The reason why, I just think it's just too peripheral to their core business. I know a lot of people are trying to think, okay, this is all a 3D chess move. They're going to try and surface up, try and monitor sort of job postings and then figure out actually where the demand is for the AI services, and they're going to roll out professional services to these companies that otherwise be recruiting for those people. Maybe there's something there, but it's still a very small percentage of how OpenAI plan to make money. So I don't think it's going to be much. I think it'll be a job board, basic job board, much in the same way that sort of X did a job board. It will then probably not go because it won't have enough corporate support to push it through. So OpenAI job board, damn squib, in my opinion. Facebook jobs, that was interesting. Local jobs marketplace, I was actually delighted to see that. Facebook are the dormant, you talk about 800-pound gorilla. Facebook are kind of the sleeping dragon, aren't they? I mean, they've got more user profiles than anybody. If you look at LinkedIn, there's obviously the big beast, got 1 billion profiles, so they say. The only organization that has anything that can match that is Facebook, that might have 2 billion, 3 billion profiles or something. They could really, really, really make a dent on the frontline blue-collar workspace if they wanted to. But again, I just don't think it's strategically sort of nested in their core strategy. I don't think Zuckerberg's got a view on it. I don't think he even knows about it. It's likely to be just some local product managers that's in Facebook Marketplace and thought, you know what? What's the difference between selling furniture and selling a few jobs? Let's roll that out. So I think, again, it's going to be damn squib, even though I hope against hope it won't be, because I think it could be a significant competitor to the likes of the Indeeds of this world if they could just get their act together. I mean, they've got enough distribution and they've got enough candidates. So I'd love to see it happen. But again, I think big beasts struggle with peripheral projects, peripheral products, even though from our bias point of view as recruiters, we think, oh my God, why don't they push harder with this? This would make perfect sense. So yeah, I don't think it's coming. I don't think it's coming in via those two routes. Probably the biggest deal that's happened this year with recruitment tech, in my opinion, is LinkedIn Hiring Assistant. LinkedIn is, of course, in our industry. They are a big gorilla. They do have massive distribution and they've got huge data advantage compared to everyone else. No one else has better data, at least in terms of kind of white collar professional work, than LinkedIn. And I think LinkedIn Hiring Assistant is going to do some damage to the industry. Damage in a softie, so I don't mean that as a negative, but damage in that colloquial sense. It will make a difference because it'll take market share and it'll share of wallet away from other products out there. Simply because I think it's going to be effective enough for people to do a lot of recruiting through it.
Interesting. Well, we've talked a lot about AI in the last 20 minutes for obvious reasons. We had a large number of TAtech members at HR Tech and a fairly significant number at RecFest USA here recently. They all have reported that every single solution provider that was there was claiming that their product was AI first development and that it was different from its competitors in a significant way. So one of the problems that was identified was that it was very hard for the buyer to understand the differences between these products. But what also came out was sort of a looming sense that, and there's been some writing about this, that we are perhaps entering an AI bubble, not dissimilar from the dot-com bubble, for those of us who've been around a while, that occurred earlier. What do you think? Do you think that we're at a point where companies are so overvalued and so unable to define their differentiating value proposition that the whole thing could collapse around us?
I think we're definitely in a bubble. The argument is whether the bubble is also like a normal thing with transformatory technology. So in other words, the concept is, look, at least in the US, so US AI, which is basically 80% of how AI people experience AI, at least at the enterprise level, almost all of the big players are talking about something called AGI. Which is artificial general intelligence, or even ASI, artificial super intelligence, which is essentially an intelligence that is equivalent to or superior to a human being. Now, those evangelists for AGI, ASI, the Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks, the Altmans of this world, they then go ahead and promise as soon as they achieve AGI, ASI, there'll just be like a world of plenty will emerge, because suddenly AI is going to do everything. It's going to be a self-reinforcing, self-improving AI. So as soon as you have this, it's going to learn from itself. There's no way to stop this. The sort of the improvement sort of loop. It'll just continue to accelerate to improvement, and who knows what happens. About calling forth the silicon god, for instance. That's the kind of messianistic sort of language and narrative you're hearing. So apparently you hit this and suddenly you become you unlock all of the cornucopia of what it means to be the company Earth to AGI. And so all of the money that's piling into these frontier labs which is an absurd amount of money right now, is essentially going towards, okay, who's going to be the winning sort of company that produces this? Is it going to be OpenAI? Is it going to be Anthropic? Is it going to be Meta? Is it going to be any one of those companies? And so is it overvalued? Who knows? I mean, let's say you do call forth the Silicon God. Like, what's the price of that? Probably worth it, right? No matter how much you've invested in. However, there is doubts whether you can get to a Silicon God. Like, is it actually going to happen? We've seen a lot of evidence sort of in recent days to really criticize the path that we're on, meaning are LLMs actually ever going to get there? This is the Gary Marcus view. This is the Yann LeCun view. This is the people who've basically been long-time critics of the direction of travel. Even the LLM may not ever get there. Now, without getting too technical, we're unfrozen. Yeah, I don't think there's anything we do about this. We just have to continue as best we can, Pete. But without getting too technical about it, but essentially the reason why people think LLMs are not going to get there is because, firstly, it is disembodied intelligence that's fed textual data in the main. Textual data is not actually real world information. It's self-interpreted. Its language itself is a technology. Written text itself is a technology. It is not itself kind of direct access to reality. It doesn't dream. So you switch AI off, it stops thinking, right? Because you've unplugged it. So that's a very different kind of intelligence. Whereas we as human beings, or any kind of organic intelligence, actually never switch off, because the brain, even in deep sleep, will continue to connect and continue to kind of operate. And it's actually some argument the reason why we do sleep is in order for us to kind of delete lots of things that have occurred in our waking state, such that we can then identify patterns and make those cognitive leaps. Now, LLMs cannot do any of this. So there is an argument to say that it's overvalued because LLMs are not the path towards AGI. In which case, yes, we're in a massive bubble. And when that bubble pops, we're in big trouble, because 30% of the US equity market is consumed by investment from 7 companies. And these are all the big sort of tech companies in doing AI. And 6 of those 7 companies are all customers of one company, NVIDIA. So it's starting to be a situation where you've got massive concentration of capital in a very small number of companies that are all shooting for something that may not be actually resolve into what they think it is, in which case they may have overbuilt and overinvested in all of these data centers, all of these types of chips that are being bought, which basically don't have a long life cycle. If you look at how fast NVIDIA basically update their latest chipsets, it's between 6 and 12 months. They come up with something totally new that's significantly better than what it was before, and the previous sort of set of chips are no longer as attractive or interesting. The price of those drops away, and so if that continues down that track, then we're throwing a huge amount of money purchasing the elite chips that actually will basically become obsolete very quickly, shooting for an outcome that we might not ever get. So yes, there's a risk. I think a significant risk that we're in a situation where this is one huge bubble and it will pop. Question then is, okay, what happens after that? We end up with a bunch of data centers. Maybe that's not a bad thing. So potentially, that could be the infrastructure for a future internet powered by AI, or it could just be a warehouse where nothing happens, and you've just wasted a ton of money. So yeah, it's an interesting place. I'm generally on the view that it is a bubble, and I'm waiting for it to pop.
Well, listen, we have come to the end of our time, and I know there are questions out there. I know folks have lots of interest in what more you have to say, but that's the point. If we'd like to hear the full story from Hung, please join us at TAtech Europe coming up in London on November 11, 12. These are exactly the kind of topics he'll talk about, but also the rest of the conference will wrestle with. There's no simple silver bullet kind of solution to these topics. They're complex, they're strategic, and that's why we have conferences to bring together thought and business leaders to try to provide the best information for moving forward in, as Hung was saying, a high risk, highly volatile environment. So I would also add that in that kind of environment, there's also great opportunity. And that's really what we're all about at TAtech Europe, finding that opportunity amidst all the risk and volatility. So, Hung, as always, it was insightful. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you very much for joining us. And I hope we'll see at least some of the folks on the show join us in London on November 11, 12. Thanks very much, everyone. Come back.